4 months after turning down the broadcasting offer and recommitting myself to boxing, I found myself about to face the world's number 4 ranked heavyweight contender, Isaiah Wheeler. The fight would be featured on Showtime. It would be the biggest payday of my career. And it would be an opportunity for me to establish myself as a legitimate heavyweight title contender. Wheeler was 25-0 and the former cruiserweight champion. He made the move up to heavyweight a year earlier, and everyone was expecting him to soon challenge Patterson for the title. Wheeler would be the quickest fighter I ever had to face moving up to the heavyweight division. For 10 weeks, I trained hard, harder than I ever had before. I knew Wheeler's speed and quickness would be a major challenge for me. After all, it was ironic that I'd moved up to heavyweight division primarily to avoid fighters as quick as Wheeler. And now, in the biggest heavyweight bout of my career, I'd be facing a fighter with elite cruiserweight speed. The advantage I had was power. I was now fighting at 235 pounds, while Wheeler fought at a trim 205. If I could catch him, I'd be able to hurt him. But that was a big if. Each of the previous heavyweights Wheeler faced thought the same thing, but he defeated them both. On the night before the fight, self-doubt crept in. I couldn't get over the feeling that Wheeler was out of my league. Did I really belong in the same ring with a boxer as skilled as him? This guy was born to be a champion. He was the son of a former champion and had been training since he could walk. A guy like Wheeler was destined for success. People had been grooming Wheeler to be a world-class boxer since he was a baby. Who was I? A guy people had laughed at when I wanted to be a pro boxer. A guy who was good, but not great. Certainly not elite. Who was I to think I could go toe-to-toe with a born fighter like Isaiah Wheeler? Those were the thoughts running through my head when I asked Andre, "You really think I'm ready for this guy?" I'm sure that wasn't what Andre wanted to hear the night before the biggest fight of my life. He had to be getting tired of my fearful responses to each new step in my career. I had been afraid to turn heavyweight, afraid to face Alex Brutka on TV. And for the past 2 years, I had been afraid to face a fighter ranked higher than me. Now, after agreeing, it was time to aim higher. I was afraid I might be aiming too high. We were sitting on the balcony outside my hotel room, overlooking the famous Las Vegas Strip. When I looked out at all the flashing lights, I didn't feel the excitement those lights were meant to introduce. I felt dread. I felt fear. My opponent, the most elite fighter I had ever prepared for, was waiting for me. My future was waiting for me, and I wasn't sure I was ready. But if Andre was irritated with my fearful question, he didn't show it. "You are absolutely 100% ready for this guy," he said without hint of a doubt. "I hope so," I said, a weak attempt at trying to match his enthusiasm. "That doesn't sound very convincing," he said with a smile. "I don't know what my problem is. I can't stop thinking that I'm about to face the guy we hoped to avoid by moving up to heavyweight a few years ago. I might not have liked your chances against him at 195, but I love your chances at 235, Andre said. He hasn't experienced power like yours, and he's not going to like it. If I can catch him, I said. Back in my cruiserweight days, I couldn't catch guys like him. You're faster than you were back then, and much stronger. Yes, he's quicker than you, But you know this, and I won't sugarcoat it. But we trained to get you ready for that. You're going to cut the ring off, and when there's nowhere else for him to run, he's going to feel your power. Every fighter has strengths and weaknesses. Don't be intimidated by his strengths. Let him be intimidated by yours. Man, he's incredibly talented, I said, doing a horrendous job of focusing on the positives. And so are you. He's flawless in the ring. He never makes mistakes. Honestly, I wonder if I'm taking the fight too soon. If I lose, how far do you think I'll drop in the rankings? What the hell is all this talk? Andre barked. Finally getting fed up with my negativity. You're acting like the fight has already been decided. Last I checked, 2 fighters are entering the ring tomorrow. Not just one. I'm trying to be realistic, I said. I hate that word, Andre said. Realistic? Yes, realistic. It's a word mediocre people love to use. It's nothing more than an excuse. What's realistic or not is determined by you. It's determined by your effort and your attitude. Saying victory is unrealistic before you even step in the ring makes you a loser before you even try. I'm just saying, I need a little luck if I'm going to pull this off, I said. I'll give it everything I got, but this guy's been fighting since he was in diapers. He won gold in the Olympics. He's in another league than me. If I'm going to beat him, I need to catch some breaks. I'll need him to make some mistakes. I'll need some luck, I said. Just stop, will ya? Andre interrupted my rant. It's not luck that you need, it's courage. You're more prepared from this fight than you've ever been, and you've got a great opportunity sitting right in front of you. The only thing getting in your way is fear. This isn't the voice of fear talking, I said. It's the voice of reason. Andre pursed his lips and shook his head slowly. He wasn't hiding his disappointment at what I was saying. He looked away from me and said, "Haven't I taught you anything?" "You've taught me everything," I said. If there's one fear I can't stand more than any other, it's the fear that says you don't deserve success. It's the fear that says your fate has already been decided and nothing you do will make a difference in the outcome. That fear tells you to quit before you even try. That's the fear I hear talking right now. Andre believed that success was a choice, and that the choice to persevere and never give up would always make the difference. He had constantly preached that message to me. He believed that refusing to quit was the most important ingredient in a winner. He couldn't stand quitters. "I'm not quitting," I said. "Don't misunderstand me. I'm going to give it everything I have tomorrow night. I'm just trying to prepare myself mentally for the fact that it might not go my way. I don't want to be a Pollyanna. I'm trying to be realistic." How can you give it everything you've got if you think winning isn't realistic? "That's not what I meant," I said. "That's what you said," Andre countered. "All I'm saying is I could use some luck. That's what I'm praying for tonight. Wheeler is more talented than me. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. He's much more experienced than me. He's much faster than me. Those are the facts." Andre took a deep breath and composed himself. That's fear talking. Fear will never stop trying to make you doubt yourself if you don't shut it up. He turned to me and continued, "Your destiny is not determined by luck or fate. It's determined by your effort and your attitude." That's a small snippet from Victory Favors the Fearless, How to Defeat the 7 Fears Holding You Back by Darren Donnelly. That brief chapter intro was about the fear of not being good enough. A lot of guys deal with that. I've dealt with that a lot in my career, building my gym, building my online business. Before getting into fitness, I ran a bread business for 12 years, and eventually then, got into fitness. And this whole time I'd been training jiu-jitsu at the time. I would have those same fears when I was getting ready for competitions. And it's a real thing. But the one thing that stood out to me in that little reading were 2 words that I can't stand as well. And those 2 words are be realistic. If there's one thing I've always done in my life, whenever I set goals, I've always set big, crazy goals. What do they call that? BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals. And I didn't set big, hairy, audacious goals. It wasn't something I intentionally tried to do. What does Grant Cardone talks about, like the 10x rule, right? Like if you think you need $100, you need $1,000, right? You don't need 10,000, you need 100,000, right? I don't intentionally try to set 10x goals. It's not something that's not something I've consciously done. But just innately, I've always just set what people would consider big goals. Like when I share my goals with my wife, she's like, wow, I would never have set a goal like that big. I would never have set a goal that big. She's like, I'm so glad you're confident in your ability to do that. And this was anything, whether it was training jiu-jitsu, whether it was, losing weight when I needed to, building a deadlift. I just always had these, what people would consider big goals. And back in 2015, I was attending a barbell course that Pavel and Andy Bolton co-led. This was back in 2015 in Boston. And they were taking questions and answers. And I can't recall what the question was, but someone asked a question, and one of his response, or in the middle of his response, he said this one thing, and it just always stuck with me. He said, mediocrity is always at its best. Mediocrity is always at its best. And that just always stayed with me. And so when I was reading this book and I read that little part about, being realistic, it just reminded me of that moment when Pavel said that. And you've probably heard this, people, may have told you, that's not realistic. Or maybe hear people say, I think I need to keep my goals more realistic. Set realistic goals. You ever hear that? And man, same here. I too hate those 2 words, be realistic. Because here's what it does. When you set, quote, I'm going to set realistic goals, what this does is this gives you permission to play small. It gives you permission to not make decisions. It gives you permission to not set high expectations of yourself. Because the truth is, man, a man can only rise to his level of the expectations that he sets for himself. So if you set these, realistic goals, your expectations are going to be really low. To lose 10 pounds, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever that is, to build a deadlift, to earn your jiu-jitsu black belt, no additional effort is required to lose 10 pounds and lose 30 pounds. No additional effort's required. No additional effort is required to go from a blue belt to a black belt. No additional effort is required to go from, pulling 405 pounds to pulling 705 pounds. No additional efforts required. The difference is the consistency, showing up every single day. So people who tell you, you need to have realistic goals, those people do not have your best interest in mind for a couple of reasons. Number one, They're encouraging you to not set high expectations of yourself, ultimately so you can be better than you were yesterday. So if you want to become a better man, you need to set high expectations of yourself. And number 2, they want you to be just like them. The crabs in a bucket effect, right? When people see you attaining your goals, when they see you doing the things you said you were going to do, it reminds them that they're still in the exact same place that they were a year before, and they don't like that. Setting high expectations positions you to give your 100% best effort and reach your truest potential, which is the definition of success. The definition of success is not how much money you have. The definition of success is not, how many possessions that you have. That's not the definition of success. The definition of success is reaching your truest potential, becoming the strongest and best version of yourself. So, dude, if you can do these 3 things, you will always win in life, on and off the mat, in the gym, out of the gym. If you can do these 3 things in your career, whatever it is that you set yourself out to do, if you can do these things, you will crush the competition around you. You will leave behind everybody around you. If you can do these 3 things, number 1, if you can set high expectations of yourself. Number 2, if you can learn from your mistakes. So once you set the high expectation, you get to work. You make the decisions. You do the thing. Then make notes of the journey. You got to track things. From there, track the things that you did well. Track the things that you didn't do well. Now you have a precedent. Then when you move to the next program, when you move to the next eating strategy, when you go back to jiu-jitsu, whatever that is, learn from those mistakes. And number 3, if you can do this one, you'll outlast everyone around you. Do not quit. These are the 3 rules that I pretty much followed, have pretty much followed my entire life. But particularly, these are the 3 rules that I followed to attain my jiu-jitsu black belt, which took me about 10 years. Here's the thing. I didn't do anything extraordinary to attain my black belt. All I did was set high expectations of myself. All I did was learn from my mistakes, because that's all jiu-jitsu is you're going to constantly make mistakes. That's the beauty of the art. Another hidden benefit of jiu-jitsu. And most importantly, I did not quit. I just held on. I kept going. The same thing happened when I opened up my gym. When I opened up my gym in 2011, man, I want to say like 10 other little studio gyms opened up around me within that year. And I think 5 of them were like CrossFit gyms, because that was like the rate. That was the CrossFit was like probably like almost at its peak at that point, when everybody was into it. And I remember people telling me, like, you're a kettlebell only gym. Like, no one wants a kettlebell only gym. I was like, well, we'll find out. And I just kept going. I continued to show up. And guess what? Here we are, 11 going on 12 years later. They're all gone. I think there's one of them left in business. They're all gone. All because I set high expectations of myself. I learned from the mistakes that I made, and I will constantly make mistakes. None of us are perfect. But I did my best. I do my best to learn from those mistakes. And then most importantly, I don't quit. I will keep going. So, dude, if you can set, not if, when you set high expectations of yourself, when you learn from your mistakes, and when you don't quit when things get hard, because things are going to get hard, you're going to destroy everyone around you. Do you know why? Because mediocrity is always at its best. That's all I got, man. Appreciate you watching. See you on the next one. Peace.